Good evening. This is a tile I bought at an op shop at Tura Beach on the far south coast of New South Wales. Yesterday we went to Tura Beach shops and we had a look around, and I went into an op shop. It was an op shop with the three older ladies in the op shop, and they were chatting. And I used to go to op shops a lot, but I haven't been so much lately. And I walked in there. I was just looking around at all the different shops at Tura Beach. They've got Harvey Norman, Woolworths, a cafe, two hairdressers, a barber, a tile shop, one bakery. Anyway, this op shop had a few things. At first I saw one vase and they said, oh, that's $10. That's an English vase. And I thought, oh, I'm not going to pay $10 right now for a vase. I don't need a $10 vase. And then this one was $2. And this is a handmade little ceramic vase. And it has a mark, a stamp on it by the maker. I used to know two potters in Arimba near Gosford and Wyong, and I knew them quite well. And they trained in Japan, and they used to have a stamp. So this one has writing on it. It's a bit tricky to read this writing. This is unusual at the base to write this type of thing. But it says 87, 7.7.87. Can you read that text? Anyway, I thought that would look pretty for a camellia or something small. And the ladies were all chatting about the cost of living. They were saying, oh, I get 30% off my rates. They were all about over 65, I think. And then one said, oh, I just paid $300 for my MRI. And it was $300 after any rebate. So that's difficult for pensioners. And then another lady, they were talking about their bills. They were talking about paying for insurance and how much insurance is now. And they were saying, oh, you increase your excess and then, get a cheaper deal on the insurance. And they were having a great chat. And I thought they should have their own radio program because they were really helping each other. And so I thought all their advice was spot on. And they were very chatty. Anyway, this one, I'm not sure who made this exactly. They've got a little stamp, but that was $2. And good to get something locally made instead of the English item I saw, mass-produced, for $10. And then this one is a Dutch tile. A long time ago, when I went to the UK in late 1990, when I was very young, I visited my aunt in East Sussex, where I was born. And I met a friend in London from Sydney from my art school when I was doing a degree in visual art. And my friend gave me a little tile, a little Dutch Delft tile. And is that how you say it? Is it Delft? D-E-L-F-T. Those little hand-painted blue and white tiles from Holland. It's now called the Netherlands, but when I grew up it was called Holland. And the friend gave me this little tile, and I was going backpacking, and I thought, crikey, what do I do with a little beautiful tile? And I left it at my aunt's home in the kitchen. And strangely, yesterday morning I was emailing my late aunt's husband, my uncle. And he still lives at that house in East Sussex, and that's where I left the tile. And then a few hours later, I found another tile from Holland in this kind of style with the blue and white. So that's such a strange coincidence that the only Delft tile I was ever given, I left in this house where I was near the property I was born, next door to that property. I was born at my grandparents' home, and my aunt and uncle lived in the corner of that property in another home. They're now separate properties, but before it was a combined property. Anyway, and then I'd emailed him yesterday morning replying about something. And then I found in the op shop at about just after lunch, about 1 p.m, I found another Delft tile. So that was really weird when you let something go and then it comes back, 34 years later. No, yeah, 34 years later. A Dutch tile. And I'd just been chatting to my uncle. And I'd left my last tile at his house in 1990, in December, I think it was late December. And then I went up to Scotland for the New Year in Edinburgh to visit some other cousins who lived near Edinburgh. Anyway, so this is my second Dutch tile that I've ever owned. And I thought it was quite beautiful, the rooster. And it's from Holland, and it was $3. So I got a lovely little op shop haul for $5, a handmade ceramic vase, and a Dutch tile with a very lovely, handsome rooster. And if you look at the back, it says Holland, and it's got some type of signature. I don't really know what this means, but I spent a lot of time at a ceramic workshop in Ourimbah with two ceramic artists who trained in Japan, as I said. So I like ceramics a lot. That was in like 1987, 88, 89, 90, 91. I used to go there quite a bit. And I loved watching them make pots. And they trained in Japan. And they're respected Australian potters or ceramic artists. So I do like ceramics, and it gave me a lot of comfort as a late teen and early 20s person to know these artists and to read their books and just to share their interests. I think sometimes when you're young, you look for different places where you feel comfortable, and I like their books, I like their music, I like their art magazines. And I was living in Sydney then as a young person, but when I visited the Central Coast, I'd drop in and say hi. And I like knowing them in high school. Anyway, so that's my little Dutch and Australian op shop find. And it was lovely to have that connection back to a Dutch tile in late 1990 that I left in Alceston. And then I suddenly chatted, to my uncle yesterday morning, and then I found a Dutch tile again. Isn't that strange? We let go of things happily, and then the universe brings things back after 34 years, when I'm now middle-aged. So, and that friend, she was working in Holland. Back then she visited Holland, and she really liked a youth hostel in Amsterdam. And later we were chatting a couple of years later, and she said, I'd really, really like to go back to that youth hostel. And she said, I remember it was called this name, which I won't mention yet. And I really want to write to them and go and work there and enjoy Amsterdam and enjoy the people there. And she liked it because it was a Christian youth hostel and she was a churchgoer. And I said, why don't you just write the name on an envelope of that youth hostel, which I won't mention right now, and write the name and then youth hostel in Amsterdam and then Amsterdam, Holland, and just send it. And she sent it. And this was the days before email and before the web, the World Wide Web. This was like 1992. And she sent the letter, and it came back, and they said, hi, we'd love you to work here. Come along. And then she went with her husband. They were about 24. And they worked there for 6 months in Amsterdam in this youth hostel. And it was a Christian youth hostel, so she was happy there. She loved all the art in Amsterdam. And then they tripped around Europe, etc., after working there for 6 months. And then I went and visited her in about 1993, and I worked there. And I met someone there, And my life changed in different ways at that time. And it's funny that she gave me a Dutch tile, earlier in 1990. And then later she wrote that letter and I encouraged her. And then in 93 she worked there after visiting in 1990, I think. And then I met someone there. So Holland's got an interesting connection to my life. And I also grew up with quite a few Dutch people in Sydney. So these things have an interesting history for me. And Amsterdam has an interesting history, and Holland. So that little Tura Beach op shop brings back some interesting memories of Dutch tales and the people connected. My old friend, my aunt, my uncle, and then someone I later met in Amsterdam working with my friend. Okay, have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.